Thank you, Valerian and Anup and Asang in particular, and everybody at NLU who has decided to suffer me this evening. I've written down something because I'm not somebody like Valerian who lectures every day to students, so I can get, usually I kind of ramble along. So, but still I'll begin with a little rambling because certain things that he laid out about how caste is there with us, right? It's not going to go away. It has transmogrified itself, it has adapted itself. Christianity can come, colonialism can come, Buddhism can come. There have been many challenges to caste, the ideology of caste. And it has kind of been resilient. And as I hopped into the car with a person who came to pick me, I won't name him, asked him, so where do you stand vis-a-vis caste? Oh, I'm upper caste XX Brahmin. So I said, is there a lower caste Brahmin? That put him into a bit of a thing. I said, so he said, I do know lower caste Brahmins. I happen to be born one. I mean, not a lower caste Brahmin. I was born into a Brahmin caste which is called, which calls itself Iyengar in Tamil Nadu. And if you really look at, and this person who hopped into the car to pick me up, who called himself a Madhva, which is from Karnataka. So yeah, sorry, I gave the game away. So I said, do you wear this and all that? No, my father is secular, kind of semi-secular, whatever, he doesn't believe. So certain things can change things. What is very interesting about what he said, I'm sorry to use him as an anchor for my initial ramblings. I'll come back to the core text. Was that he said, well, his father was in the Air Force, so he had to probably eat, and conversation went around, 45 minutes to kill, and can't keep looking at your phone all the time, and you got to make conversation. And what do two Indians meet and then they talk? They figure out what's the other person's caste, whether you can really eat with them, whether we can really do something with them, whether we can socialize with them. So all this, and forget becoming boyfriend or girlfriend or boyfriend girlfriend or whatever. All these other possibilities start coming into play only once you're kind of made sure that certain things won't really be roadblocks. So we practice caste every day, every breath of ours is of caste. So how do we negotiate? So the interesting thing about Air Force and the connection to the man to whom we paid floral tributes is that his father, how did he become who he was? His father, Ramji Sakpal, his great-grandfather, Maloji Sakpal, all of them were in the army. They served the British army. And there was a Mahar regiment which defeated the army of the Peshwas. Now ask yourself, why is a Mahar regiment fighting the Battle of Koregaon, 1801, defeating the army of the Peshwas? Who were the Peshwas? Were the Peshwas always Brahmin? Was anybody always Brahmin? If you really investigate the category Madhva, or the category, when was Madhvacharya? Roughly, I'm not very good at history. Roughly post Ramanuja? 9th century. First was Sankara, 8th century. Ramanuja is 9th, and then you have 12th century, and all these reformers come. So roughly around 9th century, and according to my grandfather, all these dark-looking Iyengars. There are these dark. He was a dark-looking fellow himself. He was fairly dark, not even my complex. There are shades and grades in which you have, like in the Fair and Lovely cream. Tuck. In 6 days you will become like this. So that's the kind of gradation we have. So my grandfather, who was quite a dark-skinned fellow, he used to say that all these black Brahmins, this Ramanuja fellow came and put this thread on everybody and then converted them. They're actually Shudra Brahmins. So they would not marry there are lower caste. So the point I'm making is there are lower caste Brahmins, and any caste category can be fictitious. You take any subaltern community, subordinated caste. I dourly refuse to use categories like upper and lower unless the invisible quotes are visible. So if you look at, say, a Dushad who are also called Paswans in Bihar and other places, they'll tell you they're actually Kshatriya. They were originally like that, and then they were forced to rear pigs at some point, and then this became this. And every narrative of discrimination has a certain imaginary past where you were actually, if you look at Mahars also in Maharashtra, no, we were actually a valorous community, we were this and that, and we actually fought on behalf of the Shivaji army and several things, and we were forced, during one famine, we ended up eating the meat of a dead cow. And this is something Ambedkar also talks about, how Dalits today are not Dalits, but as in literally, he writes an essay on untouchability, the dead cow, and broken men, where he talks about how you become fallen because you have done something which is prescribed to you. So these are the various narratives. So when you self-surely reveal your caste, for practical purposes, I can't say I'm not a Brahmin. So if you technically ask my father, and then I started investigating and playing games with my father, who said he belongs to this Gotra, which is Kaushika Gotra. If you're a Kaushika Gotra, which means what? You're Vishwamitra Putra. Vishwamitra was what? He was not exactly a Brahmin. He was a Kshatriya, he was a wannabe Brahmin. He was a wannabe. He was a dude of those days who said, I want to be Brahmin. So he fights with who? He fights with Vashishta. He says, hey, give me a Brahmin post or something. He says, no blood. And then he goes on a penance, and then what do? They send Menaka to him. Go dance before him and seduce him. So she seduces him. So I told my father, you could be a Menaka Putra. Because paternity is an inference, right? You can be sure of your mom. Can't ever be sure of your dad. So the entire caste system, and Ambedkar was saying all this at the age of 25, no laughing matter. Castes in India, read that essay. Before you come to Annihilation of Caste, read his 1916 paper presented at a Columbia University seminar. A marvelous paper which was much neglected by sociologists and everybody in this country. Okay, so I'll just a kind of a preface to what I feel is about the persistence of caste, and the way its resilience is built is in creating fictions of both Brahminness and untouchability and the range of things that happen in between. Nothing is, if take the example of Jats again, I'll stop with that example and then go back to what I really wanted to tell you about Enlightenment and Annihilation of Caste. Tough ask. So take the Jats. The Jats in roughly the 6th, 7th century were Chandalas. Irfan Habib got into trouble for saying that. And subsequently the Jats move up and then they become Shudras, a peasant caste. And by the time of the Mughal period, they have arrived as Kshatriyas. Now they want to go back to becoming some kind of an OBC, BC category, so that they can, it depends on states where they are from, and there are different kinds of Jats and different kinds of states. So it becomes a category into which you can force fit people later. The Punjabi Jat will say the Haryanvi Jat is of no good, and then the UP Jats will say, no, we don't marry among them. So it's not as if all the Brahmins are marrying each other, it's not as if all the Jats are marrying each other, it's not as if all the Dalits will marry each other. So the way the caste system operates is in sustaining these fictions. So the broad BKVSC category, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Chandal, that would remain, and then over 800 years, in your lifetime you're not going to, Ambedkar compares it to a multi-storied building in which you're each stuck in this and there's no movement between that. He uses a crucial caveat, in your lifetime. So across generations, there is a possibility, but who knows, 800 years down the line, this is the whole thing of, karma, no? You do good things now, if that's what Gandhi also said, if you're born a Valmiki, just keep doing that like divine calling and keep doing it so that in the future you will become something better. So that apart. So Ambedkar's in Annihilation of Caste, he uses one very powerful thing. I'll begin with that quote. Caste is no doubt primarily the breath of the Hindus, but the Hindus have fouled the air all over. I'm going to focus on Annihilation of Caste, which is a book which is produced as a critical, very fat-looking book. But I'm sure you're all reading it in part of your poverty and law course. So I'm glad to be speaking to an audience which is at least slightly familiar with the text. So Ambedkar's Annihilation of Caste, as far as we are concerned, is a text in search of an audience it was written for. It was written primarily for, it survived an assassination attempt, so to speak, because the Jatpat Todak Mandal which invited him, which was a 1936 Lahore, Punjab, undivided India, they are inviting him to come and give a lecture. Why? Because in 1935 he drops a bombshell saying it was my misfortune to be born a Hindu, but surely I'm not dying one. So they want to kind of say, chalo, let's have some conversation, don't go away from us. And demography was a very crucial issue because Ambedkar was very clear about the fact that nearly 20% of the Indian population is not going to enlist itself as Hindu. So we are not Hindu. So if you're talking separately to Muslims, separately to Sikhs, and separately to Hindus, talk to us separately as untouchables. And he used that word with a certain kind of, because he also used touchable as if it was an abusive word. He would say touchables. He would constantly use touchables with the caps as if he's abusing somebody. So he's having a conversation with this Mandal. They find the address that he has written unbearable. The Mandal realized that Ambedkar intended to use its platform not merely to criticize the practice of caste, but to denounce Hinduism itself, and withdrew its invitation. These kind of things happen even today. You invite, I told Asang, are you sure you want me to come and talk? You can also withdraw the invitation. The way it happens with Ambedkar is because he's saying, only a Brahmin is supposed to come and give you, in the lecture he says, Varnanam Brahmano Guru, that's where he begins. Only a Brahmin is supposed to come and give you an idea as to what it is. So he's quite shocked that they invite him, and he says, as a rule, I don't speak in caste Hindu forums, but yet he comes. He wants to come, but then he is told not to, and then he goes on to publish the text, 1,500 copies, self-published. I managed to see the first edition. The publisher's name is Y.B. Ambedkar, which is Yashwant, his son, and it's self-published. So, and like much of Ambedkar's other works, this work has been sustained by scores of Dalit publishers who have kept it alive for 15 rupees, 20 rupees, 30 rupees, 40 rupees, maximum you pay is 100 rupees, and you can read the text. And a lot of it is a lot of stuff for me also. For the longest time, when he uses terms like consciousness of kind, or various terms he picks up from various sociologists, and a lot of Dewey, was inscrutable for me. So the annotation exercise is to try to price open these categories. So why is it that the other audience is not reading? Is this itself illuminates the kind of iron gut of caste system that we have. In 1972, Namdev Dasal writes in his powerful ode to Dr. Ambedkar. Every year, Namdev Dasal, the Dalit Panther founder who died recently and a powerful poet, wrote an Ambedkar poem every 14th April and every 6th December. In one of them, he says, Ambedkar is the son, quote, who moves only from one freedom to the next. So his Annihilation of Caste, written in 1936, is, I think, a blueprint for freedom from caste. Reflecting on the idea of the destruction of caste. Just now, Valerian told us that, it doesn't look like it's going to go away. Upendra Bakshi in 1978, delivering a Madras University annual Ambedkar lecture, 1978, remember he's writing, he says parenthetically, Annihilation of Caste, whatever this may mean. He laments in that lecture how Ambedkar remained a prophet without honor even after 22 years after his death. And I've heard this phrase, whatever this may mean, uttered as an aside by Bakshi, reiterated several times by those who genuinely believe in Babasaheb Ambedkar's vision of a caste-free India. This caveat has disturbed and haunted me more than the alleged remoteness of annihilating caste, which could well amount to rearranging the stars in our firmament, as Arundhati says. Even Arundhati's essay, after the 160 pages of looking at Gandhi, looking at the history of India, what is the stuff. Finally, I did not know what is today's public intellectuals' engagement with caste. What do you say at the end of it? How do you annihilate caste? It doesn't look like it's going to go, so she's not going to, she says it's like rearranging the stars in the firmament, which is another way of saying whatever it may mean. But to go back to this idea, what does it mean? I mean, does it mean that we demands that we imagine another sky and another earth, make our world anew? Is that possible? Ambedkar, if you notice, a lot of people call it the annihilation of caste. Please drop such things. I mean, respect what Ambedkar said. It is annihilation of caste. It doesn't have the sole definite article that English language has to offer, nor does he refer to castes in the plural. It is as if he were referring to caste as a category, like reason, emotion, will, but a category that is repugnant. It is in fact a category that clouds the very faculties of reason, emotion, and will. In its plurality, its proliferation, there are about 4,000 castes that Ambedkar talks about back then, and there are more, they keep birthing. In its plurality and its proliferation lies the singularity of caste. In its indefiniteness and its infiniteness and its multiplicity lies its definitive existence. Hence, annihilation of caste. Annihilation of caste is Ambedkar's call for rebirth and regeneration. His was a demand to destroy something ugly in those who practice caste so that they may have a sense of the genuine beauty of the humanity that nests in each person. To turn to Namdev Dasal again, he says, everyone is, as a matter of fact, as complete as the sun. Speaking to a Dalit audience in 1942, Ambedkar says, the battle to me is a matter of joy, this battle against caste. He says, the battle is in the fullest sense spiritual. There is nothing material or social in it, for ours is a battle for wealth, not for wealth or for power. Ours is a battle for the reclamation of human personality. So now you can apply this to Kashmir, you can apply this to Manipur, you can apply this in Kosovo, you can apply this in Chechnya, wherever you want. A battle for the or for the LGBT struggle. So it's a battle for the reclamation of human personality. It's as universal as anything can get. Ambedkar genuinely wanted the privileged caste too to get in touch with their human personality, which is smothered by caste. Annihilation of Caste was an address meant primarily for those who had pretensions to shedding the unearned privileges that birth and caste bestowed upon them. So the privileged, who perceived themselves to be radical, decided to invite the learned doctor to offer a prescription against caste. This was akin to caste-breathing Hindus. I'm quite happy with that phrase because it makes them sound like dragons. The caste-breathing Hindus decide to throw open a few temples to untouchables, thinking that the latter would be awash with happiness to just see the touchable gods, pray, and leave. That's what they taught, call Ambedkar, let him give a lecture, and then that's it. But in walked Ambedkar, saying that he wanted to raise these temples down. He told them their gods were hollow, amoral, and without any love for humanity. I'm quoting him. If you wish to bring about a breach in the caste system, then you've got to apply the dynamite to the Vedas and Shastras, which deny any part to reason, to the Vedas and Shastras, which deny any part to morality. Valerian kept coming back to the idea of morality. And that's very crucial in Ambedkar. Whether he's talking about democracy or religion, he keeps talking about morality. And for him, equality, the whole thing of liberty, equality, fraternity, which he borrows from the French Revolution, is embedded, is kind of wedded to the concept of morality. And without and he believes Hindus do not have any morality. And he'll tell you how. Of Krishna, he was to say in his posthumously published Riddles in Hinduism, every one of his acts, whether as a warrior or as a politician, was an immoral act. And he calls the Gita, in his other essay, an unheard of defense of murder. What is it? Karna is fixing a chariot, he said, go kill him. This is the morality most of us learn. This is the morality of Amar Chitra Kathas if you do not have grandmothers telling you these days. That's why their Uncle Pai created Amar Chitra Kathas. One of the biggest fictions of the Puranas. The Purana is retold in different ways. You have television serials now. Everywhere, what is it that you come back with? It's okay. That's why you have in Mehrauli farmhouses brother killing brother. So it's okay because it's a property dispute, which is what Mahabharata was all about. So in that you can take any kind of life. This is the morality we learn. This is put in the mouth of Krishna, which is a later day extrapolation, as Kosambi would say, D.D. Kosambi, the historian. It was imposed on Mahabharata. A lot of things keep getting always added to Hinduism. Now it will be Santoshima, now it's Mata Amritanandamayi, against whom you can't write a critical book in Kerala. So the conservative elements within Jatpat Todak Mandal found his address unbearable. He's saying all this, put the dynamite to the Vedas. Caste is bearable. It is the idea of annihilating caste that seems unbearable. This unbearable heaviness of caste is what Ambedkar sought to unburden us of. If caste is ordained and fixed at birth, or rather it is preordained and fixed before birth, does not annihilation of caste demand a rebirth? Does it not entail remaking oneself and being born again in one's own lifetime? The diabolic Brahmin imagination created the concept of being born again through the ritual of Upanayana. They thought of this before Buddha did, before Ambedkar did. The bestowal of the Dvija, twice-born status for the three upper tiers of the Varna system, by the investiture of, only for men by the way, in case there are women here who have fancy ideas, no. Only the men get it and it's whispered into the ears and all that. I was humiliated when I was about 12 or 13 years old by all this. You have no choice. It's virtually an intellectual rape that they commit on you. They just take you as a child and do whatever they can with you. That's why India had child marriage. Before you start getting your own ideas, nip it in the bud. So that the caste system, one of the reasons Ambedkar describes why child marriage is there, why sati is there, why read caste in India. He tells you why all these practices come into place. So however, the crucial difference, to go back to this idea of rebirth in your own life, the crucial difference between the rebirth implied in Ambedkar's formulation and that of the Brahminic view is that as a Dvija, you are reborn within the caste. Initiation through the thread ceremony is a renewal of commitment to one's own caste dharma. The rebirth suggested by Ambedkar demands annihilating the caste self one is born into. Almost 10 years earlier, Ambedkar initiated this process of annihilation as creation. I see annihilation as creation. And this is something that he draws on from the Buddha. If you read the Buddha and his Dhamma, especially the later sections where he talks about Uchchedvad, the idea of negation, the theory of negation, of anatta. And Uchchedvad comes from anatta, the theory of the non-self. So Ambedkar here, 10 years earlier, that is in 1927, 20 March, he leads the Satyagraha in Mahad to draw water from the Chavdar tank in this town in western India in Mahad. Water he was denied as a child in school. Water he had to drink from a separate pot when he worked for the Maharaja of Baroda after returning from Columbia University with a clutch of degrees. Files used to be thrown at him. People used to sprinkle water to clean it up and take the file back because this doctorate holding person, double doctorate holding person, was still an untouchable. Thank you. He compared this ordinary and necessary act of quenching thirst to the storming of the Bastille. You're familiar with the storming of the Bastille, 1789. In the context of caste, the mere cupping of water in one's palm can be the most revolutionary act. In his speech, Ambedkar says, I quote, "We are not going to the Chavdar tank to merely drink its water. We are going to the tank to assert that we too are human beings like others. It must be clear that this meeting has been called upon to set up the norm of equality." Unquote. But Mahad did not trigger the equivalent of the French Revolution. How many of you have read about the Mahad Satyagraha or Ambedkar's speech there? Anybody in this audience? 1, 2 hands, 3 hands. That's about it. How many of you are familiar with the Dandi March? Every hand will go up. Where was Ambedkar born? No, I didn't ask you. Okay, Mao. How many of you know what is Mao? Expand.
Military headquarters of war.
So therein lies the answer. And lots of people think he was born in Maharashtra. He was not. Why was he born in the military headquarters of war? Then you ask a question, oh, why was his father in the military? Then you go back to the answer about breaking caste, which happens even for Brahmins when they go into the army. Army otherwise does untold atrocities upon a lot of the population, but it also helps you break caste. Like the public transport, like schools, like colleges where you don't know where you're sitting next to, who you're sitting next to. So, it is this whole thing which happens, there's no French Revolution here. After the Mahad Satyagraha, people don't even report it well, and there's a clash with the Hindus, and then the Hindus led by the Brahmins strike back. How do they strike back? Those who wielded control of temples and tanks, those who claimed to own the rain in the clouds and the grains in the fields, those who claimed to know the language of gods, they continue to hoard what they did not create. Water. Did you create water? Namdev Dasal has a beautiful poem about it. You try to put in a prison something that you did not create. Now you put it in an Aquafina bottle and put a price for it. Nobody created water. The taking of water from the Mahad tank did not cause Brahmanism's invisible yet pervasive fortress to collapse. No king was sent to the guillotine as it happened in 1789 in France. The aristocrats were not massacred, nor were their survivors driven to exile. They are all doing rather well even today. If in the drawing of water from the tank in March 1927, Ambedkar called for the creation of the norm of equality, the response of the Hindus to purify the tank, how did they purify the tank? With Panchagavya. What is the Panchagavya? Take the cow, take its piss, take its shit, take its milk, ghee and curd. Mix it all up. If you drink it, you can even cure AIDS according to Murli Manohar Joshi. They're going to come back and try to do all these experiments on us, bring back Panchagavya. And this Panchagavya was mixed into the water of the Chavdar tank, and they're purifying it. Initially, the fish must have been perplexed, but they would have also thought there are some food particles in it and eaten it up. So this is cleaning. This is ritual cleansing, which most Brahmins would believe in and a lot of people believe in. So this man, Ambedkar, returns to Mahad on 25th December the same year, and along with his friends, he makes a bonfire of a copy of Manusmriti, a work he came to believe epitomized the evil of Brahmanism. So just like Ambedkar says, there are certain things I won't accept, even at Navyana, sometimes I say there are certain things I won't publish. So it doesn't matter. If you look like I'm a book burner, fine. So the man who collected over 50,000 books and built a house for books in Bombay, it was primarily a library. There was hardly a house. I don't think Ramabai had much say in what went where. He basically took her jewelry and sold it and did all kinds of things. Poor Ramabai. A book, and what kind of a book does he burn? A book he had read only too well, and the evidence of it shines in Annihilation of Caste. So the drawing of water, the source of life, and the burning of water and fire, you're playing with both here. The drawing of water, the source of life, and the burning of Manusmriti are both powerful and potent symbols of creation and destruction. Imbued in the gesture of drawing this forbidden water is the creation of a new morality, the one that liberates water from the scourge of ritual pollution, renewing water, renewing life itself. What is water? It is not something we can live without. As soon as I finish, I'm going to sip some water. So we all take it for granted, but it's not to be taken for granted for a large section. And believe me, this is not something that has happened in 1936 and doesn't happen now. Go to Chavdar, there are hundreds of Chavdar tanks in India, including one in Rajasthan. Where is this place? It's there in our Bhimayana book as well. Where a struggle, Chakwada. It also sounds like Chakwada, Chavdar. So there even now, the Jats and Brahmins don't allow the Dalits to draw water. The Dalits fought, they gave up. They imposed fines of 50,000 rupees on two Dalits who defied the social, there's no legality to this. It's a social law. In the village, you don't defy the diktats of the caste Hindus or the Brahmins or whoever. So that is how the ancient regime of Brahmanism is burnt away. It's a revenge. He believes in due process of law. It doesn't work, then he goes and burns a copy of the Manusmriti. Annihilation of caste means the annihilation of hatred, the annihilation of disgust, the annihilation of fear of loving a fellow human being. The annihilation, therefore, is also a call for making ourselves anew. Annihilation of caste means creating the space for empathy. Empathy that people of caste are trained to lack, sometimes even for those of their own caste should they defy norms. Among Brahmin households, the first kind of untouchability you see is against the woman who menstruates, which was my mother, which is how I learned cooking, because she didn't have a daughter, which is why she sat outside and dictated to me how to cook. So you could see that for 4 days of the week, she would not even allow a bath. It's a very bizarre way of maintaining cleanliness when you say a menstruating woman should not bathe. So caste makes you lose empathy even for your own fellow, because why do Jats go and kill a Jat woman who's married, who falls in love with a Dalit guy? What makes people kill in the name of caste? So it's lack of empathy with your own kind sometimes, with your own caste. Through a quote made popular by the founder of the Bahujan Samaj Party, Kanshi Ram, the greatest politician after Ambedkar, I would say. He succeeded where Ambedkar didn't. He won elections which Ambedkar lost. He is made this quote famous. Political power is the master key that can open any lock. I've still not found a proper page number reference to this, but we all know it's part of the lore. But power lies also in the ability to not exercise it when you have it. That is true power. Not about saying I have it, I'm going to exercise it. It is the power to relinquish, to annihilate oneself and merge it into something bigger, universal, that is more difficult than power that is about aggrandizement and accumulation. Hence, Ambedkar completes his quest for annihilation, his quest for power in Buddhism. Annihilation, then, is not merely the destruction of the self, but the recovery of one. In the case of someone characterized as untouchable, this recovery is both a quest and a creation. It is this new self that Ambedkar seeks and creates by becoming a Buddhist in 1956. The declaration of breaking away from Hinduism in 1936 was as much about forging, Ambedkar keeps calling it, a new life, unquote. It is at once an act of sundering and surrendering. He says, I'll give you one long quote and I'll soon finish. It means a complete change in the values of life. It means a complete change in outlook and in attitude towards men and things. Why am I saying this? Because it's possible for, if these 200 people here or 150 people here decide to annihilate caste among themselves. Ambedkar is talking about looking within. He's a very spiritual person. And he's saying this is how you can do it. I'll go on. It means a complete change in outlook and in attitude towards men and things. It means conversion. But if you do not like the word, I will say it means a new life. But a new life cannot enter a body that is dead. Basically, as far as Ambedkar is concerned, those who ever practice caste here are all dead people. So he's asking you to enter a new life. New life can enter only into a new body. The old body must die before a new body can come into existence and a new life can enter into it. To put it simply, the old must cease to be operative before the new can begin to enliven and to pulsate. This is what I mean when I said you must discard the authority of the shastras and destroy the religion of the shastras. Ambedkar is at his most poetic and philosophical best here. Annihilation, this is me, not Ambedkar. Annihilation is creation. Negation births affirmation. This is more or less the reason why Ambedkar has become a prophet, but only for the Dalits of India. The misfortune is that he was seen to be the prophet only by Dalits, not of the humanity that had fouled the air of the subcontinent with caste. Like the Buddha, he believed that enlightenment was in the here and now, not in the hereafter. The battle against caste then is the battle to reclaim human personality, an attempt to find one's breath again and rid the air of the foulness of caste. Ambedkar was born into a Kabirpanthi family, and there's one diary fragment I saw with a collector called Ramesh Shinde. He's managed to photocopy Ambedkar's personal diaries where he talks about, Ambedkar talks about how it was necessary. He wouldn't get his dinner if he did not recite Chokamela, some verse from Tukaram, something from Kabir. His father didn't give him food. So he says, among my contemporaries, this is a line I memorized from that diary, among my contemporaries, if anyone has had a spiritual upbringing, it is me. This is this guy. So there's this little poem of Kabir which actually I picked up from a Pakistani Qawwal singer. Ram naam ki kooti gaadi suraj tana banta, chadte utarte dam ki kabar le, fir nahi aana banta. I don't like the Ram naam part of it, so I'll change it a bit. A loom of such length and breadth, the sun its fibers and threads. Listen to the rise and fall of breath. There is no life after death. So this is a chance. Fight caste. Thank you.